My name is Paul, and I did my presentation on benching the bar and your body. So the objectives for this is to just go over the bench press, go over possible injuries that can be incurred from doing the actual exercise, go over stretches and warm-ups that can help mitigate those injuries and help prevent them. Then we'll go over proper setup before you actually engage in the exercise, and then correct form and a few safety tips to help you out. Where does that start off with display of textbook form? If it works. Okay, well I guess it's not working. It's actually a funny video where a guy was doing it incorrectly, but I guess that's not happening. So, the benefits of the bench press is increased strength and muscle density. The primary muscles used is the pecs, the major and the minor. The secondary muscles used are the triceps and the anterior deltoids, which is the front head of your deltoid, which has 3. And then there's also tertiary muscles that act as stabilizers, like your abs and your lats, and your arms, your forearms, that help hold the bar in place. And the potential injuries, even though the bench press is a chest exercise, the part of your body that's mostly injured is the shoulder due to its high mobility. And usually if the more mobile something is, the higher chance you have of actually hurting it. And the shoulder is interesting because it has the outer muscles, which is the deltoid, which usually moves the muscle and provides strength. Then you also have the rotator cuff, which is the interior muscles, which provide stabilization for your shoulder. And that's why form is important, because if you're using the rotator cuff incorrectly, that's how you can easily injure it. Then you have minor injuries that don't usually happen as much, like a wrist injury from holding the bar improperly, and then you have a muscle strain. It doesn't really happen that much as if you bench too much or do incorrect form. So, a few warm-up exercises that help is it's important to keep the rotator cuff warmed up and strengthened. There's a few exercises you can do, which is external rotation. Usually you do it with the cable machine, because you do not want to hold our weight when you're doing this, because the weight is pulling down and not against the motion. So you have external, which is you go to the outside, and internal, which you come to the inside. Then you also have an abduction, which is when you bring the shoulders up. All this is designed to do is to keep the muscles from atrophying, and basically the only use I get is from bench pressing. You want to use them in other means. Then you have a pec stretch, which is what this guy's doing right here. You can basically use a PVC pipe, and you just pull it up, and you hold it right there, and you can just sit there like this, and it'll stretch it out for you. That's important because every muscle needs to be stretched before it's used, and also the more you use your muscles, the tighter they get. So if you don't stretch it out, your chest will actually come in, and you'll have bad posture, your shoulders will roll forward. And then there's also benching with a lower rate to warm up. So before the bar even leaves the bench, you need to get into the proper stance. And that is, usually you sit down on the bench, obviously, and then before you even lay down, I want you all to do this with me. It's really interesting because if you're just benching, like normally just standing up, you can see how my shoulders move a lot, like this. So what you do is you shrug up, roll your shoulders back, and then down. And then, I'm not going to ask you all to do it, but it's a really interesting feeling because your shoulders stay completely in place, and you can just feel it's more stable. And doing that will also pull your chest out and arch your back, as you can see with this guy. Like, when you're in the proper stance, your friend should be able to stick his hand under your back all the way through. And the only thing that should be touching is your upper back and your butt. And correct hand spacing is also important because if you're coming down incorrectly, your arm will be either inside or outside. And it's actually important you can start with a PVC pipe to get that correct, because that will actually lead to the wrist injury. You want your arm to be perpendicular with the ground when you're in the isometric part, which is when the bar is down, touching your chest. So the lift-off is actually very important because if you're not careful with it, you will lose the stabilization in your shoulders. You can practice this to make sure it doesn't happen. You can get assisted from a friend. The descent, you always breathe in, and when you come down, you want to aim for the bottom of your sternum, not any higher, not any lower, because it'll throw your arms out of whack, and if your arms are too high, it puts pressure on your shoulders. The ascent is you breathe out, and you come back to the starting position. Many people think that the bench press is just straight up and down, but this photo shows you should actually be coming down at an angle, and your arms should not make a 90 with your body, but more of a 45, 50. If you come down straight, you can see that it comes down on your collarbone, near your neck, and your shoulders are completely flared out. There's no stabilization there. Keeping it at this angle allows you to keep stabilization and not put as much stress on your shoulders. And in fact, it actually lowers the range of motion for your arms, and so you can lift more. Safety tips. If you're benching and your butt's coming off the ground, your shoulders are moving too much, you're wiggling too much, your form's incorrect. If at any point that happens, the weight's too heavy or you're too tired. So that's a good rule of thumb. The only thing that should be moving are your arms. Never go to failure because you can have 200 pounds above you, and if you cannot get it up, it will fall on your face because the motion to go back up goes above your collarbone, face, neck, not good. That is, of course, unless you have a spotter, then they can help you out. Become familiar with the bench hooks. Usually there are two levels. There's the top one which you take off on, and there's the safety one. You can get it up part way, but you have to be very, very careful with this because when you rack the bar, you pull back on it, and if you miss that hook, it's going to fall directly on your face because you're going to have no strength. And then there's the roll of shame, which I've never had to do. I've never actually had to see anyone do. And this is, if you have to do it, you're being kind of dumb, honestly. You're benching your max in a gym by yourself. What you do is, if you're going up and you know you can't do it, you bring the bar down to your chest, you hold it there, and you just roll it down your body and you slowly sit up. And it's basically the roll of shame because you'll have to take all the weights off of the bar and then put it back up. Any questions?